Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Imagine building, like, the most intimidating, physically dominant front row in World Rugby. And then, right when you perfect the recipe, two of your prime players are on planes flying thousands of miles away.
Yeah, in totally opposite directions.
Right. And that's the reality of South African rugby right now. But before we dig into the mechanics of what this actually means for the sport, make sure to hit subscribe on the Rugby Obsession channel and newsletter, because if you want to understand these fast-moving stories, that's exactly where you need to be.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a really complex puzzle to piece together today, and it goes way beyond just simple roster changes.
We really do. So our mission today is based on this brilliant piece from the South African. It details this massive seismic shakeup in the Springbok transfer market. So we are tracking 5 heavy hitters packing their bags for foreign leagues.
And 2 iconic veterans coming home.
Exactly, bringing their pedigree back to the Republic. So we're going to figure out what this push and pull means for the landscape of South African rugby. But I want to set the tone early here. This is not like a eulogy for local rugby at all.
No, not at all. It's really a testament to the fact that Springbok players are, well, they're highly valued premium assets right now in the global game.
Oh, sure.
You don't get heavily scouted by the wealthiest clubs in France and Japan unless your domestic system is just producing the absolute pinnacle of tactical and physical talent. The market dictates value.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the current valuation of a Springbok, we have to look at the gravitational pull of these foreign leagues. I mean, we have 5 elite players actively being pulled out of the local system.
Yeah, it's a huge shift in personnel. So you have a veteran lock like Ruan Nortje. He's closing out this extraordinary chapter at Loftus Versfeld with the Bulls, and, well, he is heading to Japan.
Oh, wow.
And alongside him, you've got the incredibly dynamic scrum half Grant Williams. He's also going east.
But we don't have the specific clubs confirmed for those 2 yet, right?
Not officially, no.
Yeah.
But the trend is just undeniable, especially, when you look at who's already over there. Manny Libuk just recently moved to the Hanazono Kentetsu Liners.
Right.
And Lucanio Am is with the Mitsubishi Sagamihara Dynabors. So Japan is heavily investing in South African playmaking and defensive intelligence.
And then, you have the Northern Hemisphere pulling in the physical enforcers, like Stormers stalwart Salmaan Moerat. He just secured a massive deal with La Rochelle in France.
Which makes perfect tactical sense, really, because if you examine the mechanics of the French top 14, that league is built on attrition. Heavy forward packs, brutal, grueling winters.
Right, it's a complete grind.
Exactly. And the constant threat of relegation means every single weekend is an absolute dogfight. So La Rochelle bringing in an enforcer like Moerat, it's not just about adding depth.
No, it's about buying dominance.
Yes, a very specific brand of collision dominance. He counters that heavy French forward play because he understands how to kill opposition momentum right at the gain line.
See, I hear the argument that this proves South African dominance globally. But I want to push back on that celebratory tone for just a second. I mean, tell that to a Bulls fan who just lost Nortje, or a Stormers fan watching Moerat leave.
Yeah, it hurts the fans.
Right. At what point does exporting our best talent just leave us with, like, a diluted domestic product? We can't just pretend losing prime players doesn't hurt the local game.
That is a highly valid concern, and the immediate local sting is undeniable. I mean, the franchises will suffer short-term setbacks, but think about the physiological and tactical adaptations these players are forced to make when they go abroad.
Like adapting to the speed of the Japanese league.
Exactly. The ruck speed in Japan is famously lightning fast. I mean, teams frequently recycle the ball in under 3 seconds.
Wow, under 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's incredibly fast. So when a heavy South African lock like Nortje goes into that environment, his cardio, his defensive spacing, his transition speed, it's all going to be stress tested in ways the URC simply doesn't demand every week.
So he's forced to, like, lean out, increase his engine, and process the game at a much higher tempo.
Precisely. The game over there is less about grinding physical dominance and more about aerobic capacity. They're essentially going to an international finishing school.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, they take their foundational South African physicality and layer it with the high-tempo processing of Japan or, the set-piece pragmatism of France. When they put the green and gold jersey back on, they are far more multi-dimensional players.
That is such an interesting way to reframe it. It's less of a brain drain and more of, like, an aggressive exchange program. They take our physicality, they give us their tempo.
And the national team reaps the ultimate reward of that cross-training.
But, it's easy to just look at the yen in Japan and the euros in France and assume the local franchises are being permanently hollowed out. But that ignores the other side of this market. We are seeing incredible pedigree coming back to the Republic.
Oh, absolutely we are.
And before we get into the mechanics of these blockbuster returns, here is a quick reminder. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the underlying tactics of these moves, subscribe to the Rugby Obsession channel and newsletter. It is truly the smartest way to stay ahead of the curve as these stories develop.
The returning talent is, honestly, arguably the most intriguing part of this entire cycle, because it directly alters the competitive balance of the local franchises.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the names coming back are foundational pillars. First up, we have in-form prop Thomas du Toit returning from Bath in England to join the Sharks.
And just to frame his current value, du Toit was recently named to the World Rugby Men's 15's Dream Team of the Year.
Which is huge.
It is. It tells you everything about his current ceiling as a player. But to understand why this signing alters the landscape, you have to look at the mechanics of his time in the English Premiership. Bath plays in conditions that are frequently wet, muddy, and incredibly heavy.
So your scrummaging technique has to fundamentally adapt.
Radically. The bind times are longer. The body height is lower to combat the lack of traction. Du Toit brings that hyper-resilient Northern Hemisphere dark arts technique back to Durban.
And he is slotting that specialized technique into a front row that already features his Springbok teammates, like Ox Nash, who was also in the Dream Team, and Bongi Mbonambi.
What's fascinating here is the compounding effect of that specific trio. You are assembling a club front row where two of the three pieces are statistically recognized as the best in the world.
That is just a tactical nightmare for any opposition pack.
Totally. You cannot target a weak link. If you try to wheel the scrum against Nash, you expose yourself to du Toit's anchoring strength on the other side. They force the opposition to expend so much energy just to secure their own set-piece ball.
It drains the opposing forward's legs before the ball even reaches the back line. It fundamentally changes the math for the opposing coach. But du Toit isn't the only veteran returning. Two-time Rugby World Cup winner Faf de Klerk is making a high-profile return to the Cheetahs.
And this is a move that, it transcends the stat sheet. Bringing a player of that caliber into the Cheetahs system is a fascinating experiment in team psychology and tactical architecture.
Right. The source material highlights his leadership, but let's avoid the cliche of just calling him a good leader. What actually changes on a Tuesday afternoon at practice when Faf de Klerk is on your roster?
Think of it like installing a cutting-edge operating system on an older computer. Faf doesn't change the physical hardware of the young 21-year-old flanker standing next to him, but he drastically optimizes how that flanker processes the game in real time.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. Because Faf controls the base of the ruck with unmatched precision. He manipulates the blind side. Plus, he uses his box kicking not just to clear his lines, but as an offensive weapon to actively dictate where the opposition fullback has to stand.
So what does this actually mean for the overall attacking structure of the Cheetahs?
It means everyone else gets an extra half second of time. Because the defense is so hyper-focused on what Faf might do, like, will he snipe around the fringes or launch a kick? Their defensive line speed hesitates.
Which naturally creates space for the centers.
Exactly. And beyond that, the younger players get a real-time education. They literally watch how a double world champion reads a defensive drift before he even touches the ball.
Oh.
He raises the baseline standard for the entire squad.
He is essentially downloading a decade of high-pressure, international tactical awareness directly into the Cheetahs system. It is a brilliant way to accelerate the development of the next generation.
It is the ultimate return on investment for South African rugby. You let them go abroad to master new styles, and you bring them back to teach those styles to the youth.
Which perfectly brings us to the underlying friction of this entire discussion. You have 5 world-class players leaving and 2 highly decorated veterans coming back. This constant revolving door sets up a massive structural debate in the rugby community.
This raises an important question, and it is the core dilemma the source article presents. Should SA Rugby allow players based abroad to be selected for the Springboks?
Right, because historically, unions want their premium talent playing at home. You want the kids in Cape Town filling the stadium to see Salmaan Moerat live on a Saturday.
Yeah, that is the traditional protectionist model, very similar to what New Zealand employs. But the financial realities of global club rugby make that nearly impossible to enforce in South Africa without losing talent permanently.
If the union mandates that you must play locally, you're forcing players into a brutal ultimatum.
Exactly. Players would have to choose between securing life-changing generational wealth in France or Japan, or representing their country.
And frankly, a rugby player's physical prime is an incredibly short, violent window. So asking them to sacrifice their earning potential out of sheer loyalty is, well, it's a really tough position to enforce.
It really is. The current model, allowing overseas selection, means the national team retains access to this vast, globally hardened talent pool. I mean, you get Lucanio Am's defensive genius even if his club checks are signed in Japan.
And you get Morat's power even if he plays in the top 14.
Right. These specific transfers make this debate incredibly pressing. By letting them leave, sure, the domestic product takes a hit. But the Springboks remain a global superpower because their players are constantly exposed to every conceivable style of rugby.
It is the ultimate tightrope walk, protecting the local product versus maintaining a world-beating national side. The source article actively calls for fans to weigh in on this, and we want to do the exact same thing with you right now.
We definitely do.
You are listening to this, you understand the stakes, and you see the mechanics of how these foreign leagues impact our players. So drop your thoughts and opinions on this foreign-based selection dilemma in the comments. Should SA Rugby keep the door open for foreign-based players to be selected? We genuinely want to read your perspective on this.
It's a debate with deeply valid, passionate arguments on both sides. I mean, when you watch Grant Williams inject his trademark pace into a Japanese club game, you're thrilled for him. But it is hard not to notice his absence when you tune into a tight local match and realize that spark is missing.
The burden of success. When you produce the best ingredients, every top chef in the world wants them in their kitchen. We will be tracking the fallout of every single one of these transfers as they develop. And for the final time today, if you want to stay informed on the mechanisms behind these movements, make sure you subscribe to the Rugby Obsession channel and newsletter.
And as we sign off, I want to leave you with a final tactical thought to mull over. We've spent a lot of time analyzing how these Springboks act as premium assets in foreign leagues. But consider the synthesis taking place.
Okay.
If our elite players are constantly absorbing the lightning-fast 3-second rucks of Japan and the heavy, intricate set-piece flair of France, how might the traditionally physical, uniquely South African style of play eventually evolve? What does a Springbok squad look like in 5 years when its core players have fully integrated the best parts of global rugby DNA into their hometown physicality?
A terrifying prospect for the rest of the world, but a thrilling one for anyone watching. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.